My name is Wendy Brabham. I teach at Plainview High School in Rapides Parish. What I am most passionate about is exciting, enticing, inviting students into a classroom where they want to learn, where they're excited about learning, and where they discover new things. The grade level of the students in this video is freshman or ninth grade. They'll be using the Springboard curriculum, Tier 1 curriculum, for this lesson. And the lesson is about functions. It's using the standards FIF 1 through 3, and it's discussing the domain and range, whether something is a function or not. And along with that comes the terminology necessary to defend the work about functions. The students are going to be grouped and work on talking about what makes a function and what makes something a relation versus a function. These students come from a Title I school where education is not promoted in the home in most cases. These students are ranging in low to high, a mixture of different levels, but none scored advanced on the 8th grade math. So we're trying to build and strengthen the math core for them in this process of grouping and thinking and talking about functions. The particular goals of this lesson are to specifically be able to defend what a function is and what a function is not, and to be able to find real-world examples of functions and things that are not real-world examples of functions so that they clearly understand the input and output, function, relation, domain, and range. The overall reaching goals are to be comfortable with the language and to use also the notation necessary for a function. The students in this lesson are intentionally grouped in a mixture of highs to lows, and even students who have not been a part of our school very long, who may be behind, or who were homeschooled. So these things were considered when grouping so that they could build and learn from one another. Prior to this lesson, we built up some 8th grade understanding about what a function was and began the process of talking about the word function and if they'd ever seen it before. In the opening, in the bell work, it was discussed anything that comes to mind when you say the word function. And they did have something to draw upon because we had formerly discussed a little bit about functions. The most relevant thing about this particular video is it's showing the actual classroom. It's not pretend. My kids really do feel comfortable talking to each other. They move around the room and they openly discuss. What I do is observe and watch what they're understanding and not understanding. I ask intentional questioning so that I can provoke them to a higher understanding of whatever it is that they're working on at the particular time. And it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to not get the right answer. They feel very comfortable talking about whatever it is they need to talk about or asking those questions. And that's really the most relevant part of the video, is that this is a community, it's a classroom, it's a home. So this morning we're going to be talking about functions. FIF 1 through 3 is our standard, and the bell work this morning is the page you see before you, which is the first page that the Springboard textbook is talking about functions. So what I want you to do is think about what words you associate with functions, and we're going to put it on our word wall. Input. Now I want you to notice that I already added, this is our vocabulary, and it's also what we're going to use to defend our work. So whenever we're having to write a constructive response, these are the words that are going to be important to that final exam too. So like we don't want to just say the X, the Y. We want real vocabulary. Oh, collection of output. All right, so we have input, output. Okay, so we're going to add to this as we go throughout this Springboard lesson. There will be more vocabulary that you're going to run across in the little boxes. I want you to pay special attention to those words. And we're going to add that to our word wall at the end because that's what we're going to use to always look at to defend our vocabulary. What is a function versus a relation? There's a different word we haven't talked about. What's some real-world connections? Functions, algebra, equations, domain, and range. Some of these things that you are going to run across in the lesson, and we're going to talk about those things. Those are our goals today. So what happened with A1, Joseph? The hunger sports. So if I input, I'm going to get a certain and very specific output. Very good. Okay, how about C2? And what if you push a button twice, the same button twice?
same result.
You get the same result. So you got it twice if you push it more than once. So now we're going to start. You're going to have 7 minutes per group. When the buzzer goes off, you'll move. If you're finished before that 7 minutes is up, I'm going to give you some booster work, which means your team could win. If it wins and you get more questions right than everybody else does, you get your prize, which is your cookie cakes for your team.
I say it is not, because if you're inputting $1 bill, that means you get 4 per time. And that means when you input $2 $1 bills, that means you get 8, which is more than 7. And 7 is not a multiple of 4, so you cannot have that as an output.
That's really good. That's good noticing. That's good work.
The range, yes, the range.
Okay, so you're saying that this is the domain?
Yes, ma'am.
And this is the range?
Everything that's Y is range.
Okay. So we have an interpretation of that because this is, see how it tells us in this little vocabulary. So make sure you're looking at your vocab. Take a look at this little guy right here. So can I ever get the number 63 if I put a B in? So you'd see how this is similar to like the bell work, how there's one input, one output. So see if you can answer these questions that connect to input, output. One entry, one output. Okay. Okay, hold up, guys. Joseph has found something really interesting. I need you to listen up real quick. What did you just figure out?
For the vending machine, it could have the same output, but not the same input.
So he noticed that whenever you put in something, you could get out the same response. And he just figured that out in doing some of the work on this page. But you can't have more than one of the inputs. The outputs can repeat. So let's keep that in mind when we're talking about input and outputs. As you're going around, think about that information because it's going to be asked of you in here. So,
but one input, but not like and 2 outputs. Mm-hmm. Well, is that kind of like the vertical line test? Like, to get like...
Okay, and by vertical line test, we mean graphing. Vertical line? Okay, yes, that's exactly right, because when I draw that vertical line, I'm going to have one time that it intersects, one solution. Go to your next station quietly, take your clipboard with you, and let's see what the next pages hold for you. Remember, we're paying attention to that vocabulary because we're going to add it to our word wall. Before I start, does anybody have a new word to add that you've run across right now? Anything else you would add to our word wall? Caleb Calhoun just said vertical line test. We're going to add that. Domain has come up. Range has come up. Very good. So we're adding, as we're going through this text, we're adding some more. So let's start on our next session, okay? Your X or your input, very good. What would the range be? Your output. Excellent. Okay, so let's keep that in mind as we're looking when they're asking me what's the domain and the range, which one is which, and that's how you can list it easily because you've just defined it as your input and your output, your X and your Y. This little symbol, f of X, is equal to what? Y. So what could that mean? Why would they tell me that's equal to Y?
Okay. So if you see f of X into an equation, you can just replace it with Y.
That's exactly right. So those are interchangeable terms. So change to our next grouping. So you're going to go to the next highest number or come around the corner. And you're going to take your work with you. If you get to a booster, make sure to let me know because that's more points, okay? We got a cookie cake on the line. And you may begin.
And that's not like, once you do it only for 5 different times.
Then once you put in the quarters, you'll get those bills.
You can only get 5 at a time. I mean, you have to do separate ones. So these little math terms are really important.
Relation. Excellent. That's exactly right. And if you haven't run across that word yet, I want you to see that you find it in the work for the springboard, okay? See that you find it. All right, go ahead. A little bit of time to log into Edulastic where you'll find this little assignment, and it's going to give instant feedback. It's going to also tell you whether you got it right or wrong, so you'll know right away, oh man, I didn't get that. I got that backwards or whatever. Yes or no, is this a function? Yeah, see how the input has the same? Okay, so you're looking at how tables are represented, and your X would represent what? Your domain or range? Your domain. Okay, and your Y is your range. And so how would I know? For instance, is this one a function?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and why? Why did you sign that?
Because it doesn't have the same input.
Up or down?
Yeah.
And why did you have permission to go down? Because they have one right there too.
Okay.
Well, if I said 1, which way do you go? Up or down? Or down. So that makes it an indecision, right? I don't know where to go. So this would. Okay, everybody has an exit ticket. on your table. Grab one, and what I want you to do is it says explain the importance of a function and the situation that you see there. So I'm kind of curious to know, what do you see there, first of all? Does anybody have any idea what's in this picture? Some sort of shipping company? How important is this function idea in this company? So what do you think? Just give me some idea of what do you think would matter. Why would it matter? Okay, so think about that for just a minute, and then we're going to read some of our ideas on what is the relevance of Tramazon having a function kind of system in order to ship packages.
Brand and only one input has the same output. Basically, it's about correlating that to.
Okay, so there's a correlation between that input and the output, meaning I'm not going to go to the same spot to find 11 things. Go ahead, Caleb. What you got?
Say you bought something from Amazon and you want it like shipped to your house or something like that. Then like the input would be like to your address, and the output would be like the item you get.
Right, so I want it, right? And so addresses, which brings up a great point, because I wanted some real world example. Addresses are functions, right? Because I'm not going to get 900 other people's, I shouldn't get 900 other people's mail. It should be my only location. Can you think of another thing in this world that is very specific to you as an individual? It is only yours?
Social security numbers.
So security numbers, that's a perfect idea of a function. Anything else? That's your birthday. Now, let's see. Can your birthday be a function? No. Why not? Other people can share your birthday. Even though that's a great idea, it should only be your day, Brian, in the whole entire world. But unfortunately, we share birthdays with other people. So there's some things that seem like that's very individual to you because it's important just to you. It's not as specific as something like a fingerprint or like your zip code. Wait, can it be zip code? No. Oh, you mean other people share my zip code? Yeah. All right, so our goals for today was to talk about function versus relation. Did we do it? Do we 100% understand it? Yes. Good. Okay, great. How do I notate it? Did anybody run across that notation that they remember? What is it called, that notation? There you go, f of x. We ran across that notation. Obviously, we're going to work on that some more. We need to build that some more because it's kind of, I don't really know that yet. Real world connections. Yes on fingerprints. Yes on debit cards. Yes on Social Security cards, but no on birthdays. That's okay. And functions, algebra, and equations. Did you run across some function machines and you had to use an actual equation and run it through? So we're good. And the last one, how about domain and range? Did you run across those words? Yeah. So because this is early on in the process, we're going to build and build and build on those to where that's just a common thing that you can defend. So what I want you to do before we leave today is hand in your bell work. And I want you to grab your homework before you go and make sure to get that to me tomorrow, okay? Good job today. Thank you, ma'am. Gracias. Bye. Y'all have a good day. Thank you. Later, dude.
Have a good day.
You too. Thank you. Thank you much. You're the best. Bye. Excellent. The objectives in this lesson, many were met. We did have a good discussion after the lesson was over, and I went through each of the bullet points to see which ones were met, which ones the students felt confident with. And I did notice that the function notation showed a weakness there, that f of x, and really understanding it. I did have one student during the lesson in particular define that really well, but in general, most of the students weren't getting that f of x equals y notation. So that I know that that was an issue. I also used the Edulastic program on the computer to give me instant feedback on who really understood and who didn't. And I did look at that data and that material, and I saw that the f of x equals y caused a little bit of confusion. And that the difference between the domain and range was also relatively new. So that's something that we will continue to work on and build on. And what I did notice also was that students really caught a hold of what is a real world example of a function when we went over the bell or the exit ticket, and it was like Tramazon, and they understood what really was the output and input and how it made a difference And after the lesson was over, we further discussed that in the days afterwards, getting more real-world examples of what was and what wasn't. It was very helpful during the video to have a student give a non-example. He really thought his birthday would be an example, and so it really helped him and the other students in the classroom connect to the idea that, no, that's not how it would work, because that actually could be many different directions for the input to go. And that's why a birthday wouldn't work. So the non-example was just as helpful as the real-world examples that took place. What I would change would be to give a little bit more think time. I am fully aware that there's only a certain amount of time in a lesson, and it kind of pressures me in my mind to think I need to get through stuff as fast as possible. So that's what I would change.